Hey, welcome to part 5 of this adventure into Freud's theory. So last time, when we left off, we talked about the different levels of consciousness and the different parts of the self, specifically the id, ego, and superego. Well, let's specifically refresh our memories and talk more about the id. Remember, that's an oversimplification, but it's the devil part of you that works on the pleasure principle. The pleasure principle is very simple by definition. That's kind of the point. It's so simple because it only has 3 real goals: to increase pleasure, decrease tension, and avoid pain. So it's immediate gratification. Get in, get done what you want to get done, and then get out of there. That's the pleasure principle. It has 2 sources of energy, which we talked about last time in episode 4, and that's Eros and Thanatos. Eros, the life instinct; Thanatos, the death instinct. This is what motivates us most, according to Freud, unconsciously, because remember, the id exists in our unconscious. We either want to have sex, Eros, or murder, Thanatos. The source of energy is the libido. We talked about that last time as well. Libido is this energy. So without the id, we wouldn't have any energy. In fact, Freud said if we didn't have an id, we wouldn't do anything at all because we would have no motivation whatsoever. The id is known as our primary process thought. So when someone accidentally walks into you, or did they walk into you, your first thought is, man, I'm going to kill you. It's a childlike thinking by which the id dominates and attempts to satisfy the instinctual drives. Like, man, you bumped into me? You're going down, yo. But that's our primary process thought, our first thought. Now we're going to rely on our ego for our secondary thought, and we'll talk more about that. But before we do, let's talk about the superego, our conscience. Not our conscious, our conscience. They're spelled differently, and they're also kind of pronounced differently as well. Previously, we talked about the different levels of consciousness. You had your consciousness, your pre-conscious, and your unconscious. Those weren't spelled like this. This is spelled conscience. And you swallow it a little bit, conscience. Your conscience is your Jiminy Cricket, the little voice in your head that tells you what not to do. Don't do that. That's wrong. No. That's your conscience. So go ahead and try that. When you say consciousness, the vibration is more in your teeth, your tongue and your teeth, consciousness. But when you say conscience, you almost swallow it. But anyways, I'm rambling. Let's move on besides the difference between conscience and consciousness. So it's the internalization of societal and parental values. According to Freud, we're born with our id. We come out, and we only want instinctual gratification. By definition, it's society and our parents that say, now, you can't do that. You can't have sex with everything, and you can't murder everyone. Now. So according to Freud, if we never had society or parents, and we just were raised in the wild, we'd have no superego. We'd just be this feral, just instant gratification individual. And our superego is partially unconscious. It lives in our preconscious because we can think about it if we want to. When we're faced with a moral dilemma, we can think about what does society want us to do in this situation. Now, the id use libido as its weapon, this energy that just gets you wanting, and so instinctual. I need this. I need to murder, or I need sex. But the superego's weapon is guilt. Do something wrong, and you're going to be hearing that voice in your head. I can't believe you're doing this. Oh my goodness, she's so bad. You should feel horrible. So that's the weapon of the superego, and it goes off of a premise known as the ego ideal. Remember, ego is just a fancy word for self, so this is your ideal self. It's a component of the superego that contains all the moral or ideal behaviors. But this is unrealistic. We have to keep that in mind because we can't be these perfect ideals. Then we'd only be doing exactly what we believe society says we should do. And then we'd just be empty vassals doing what everyone else told us to do. So we don't have an individual identity if we just let this run rampant. That's where the ego comes in. This is you. This is what makes you unique, a little snowflake. The reality principle is what the ego works on. It's the active moderator between the ego and the superego. The superego and the id. It has an ability to postpone gratification in order with the demands of reality. So it's very rationalized, it's very organized. When something happens and you sit down and you think about it, that by definition is the ego. And it can repress the id. It pushes it down to the point where you can't remember it. That's why you don't even know that you want to have sex with everything and you want to murder everything, according to Freud, because the ego has successfully repressed it. And this is where your secondary process thought comes in. Someone shoves you, you're like, oh man, you're going down. At first, that's what you think. But then your ego kicks in, calm down, let's be mature about this, let's think about this rationally. Maybe they did it on accident, we don't know. And sure enough, when that person turns around and says, oh, hey, sorry, I totally didn't mean to bump into you, instantly we have that satisfaction like, okay, cool. We don't have to let our id go crazy. Everything's fine here, people. So that's our secondary, more mature thought process. But anxiety. Let's talk about anxiety a little bit. Now we're going to talk about defense mechanisms. Anxiety is a threat to the ego. So to Freud, it's a feeling of fear or dread without an obvious cause. The best way I can explain anxiety is with a sound, and that sound is anxiety is what tells us that something is going on that we're not comfortable with. According to Freud, we experience anxiety when our unconscious starts to become conscious. And let's talk about 3 different types of anxiety. And I want you to know these things. Boom! 3 different anxiety types. You got the first one, which is the reality anxiety, also known as the objective anxiety. This is a very tangible fear, something that can actually hurt you. For instance, if someone burst into your bedroom and waved a knife around and said, I'm going to kill you, you'd be scared for obvious reasons. Another example would be spiders, especially black widow spiders, which we have here in Ohio. Watch out. But that's reality anxiety. You're scared of actual things. Then we have neurotic anxiety. This is the conflict between the ego and the id. It's an unconscious fear of being punished for not things that can actually hurt you, but things that you'd probably find embarrassing. And that's the best way I can explain it. Neurotic anxiety is the fear of embarrassment. It's not necessarily against the law, but you're embarrassed. For instance, if you're a male and you get an erection, you're totally embarrassed. You don't want people to notice, especially when you're going to go give a speech. Why? Every time I have to stand up in front of the class. Why now, buddy? Calm down. Think ugly thoughts. It's embarrassing. Or if you get really angry at Tiffany, you just want to rip Tiffany's head off, but you're like, no, calm down. Don't Hulk out here. People will think you're a monster. So neurotic anxiety is this fear of being embarrassed. Then we have moral anxiety, and that's the conflict between the superego and the id. The war between your desires for instant gratification and the guilt that will cause you. This is where you find the wallet on the ground, and you're torn. Do I take it or do I not? Man, I need that money. I'm so poor. But then the superego comes in and says, now. Society says stealing's wrong. But then the devil, the id, says, but you need that money. We can get so much with that money. That's the idea of moral anxiety. And these are the 3 anxiety types. Next, we have defense mechanisms. And I wish we had more time to get into these because they're amazing. Defense mechanisms, a couple things to keep in mind. These are the unconscious tools employed by the ego to reduce anxiety. You don't realize that you want to murder everyone and that you want to have sex with everyone because you're using defense mechanisms. I can't emphasize enough how cool these things are because as you learn these, you realize, oh my goodness, I do these all the time. But here's the 2 main things. A defense mechanism is a distortion of reality and they're unconscious. You don't realize you're doing it. It's basically your mind's toolbox to prevent you from feeling really icky about all the things you kind of want to do. For instance, you have an impulse to do something that society would deem unacceptable. So you have a defense mechanism to prevent it. And you want to list these things? You got it. Boom. Here they are. Defense mechanisms. Notice the ones that are in gray? They're in gray because I'm not going to test you on them. But the ones on red, they're going to be on your test. And here's the horrible thing. I'm going to ask you to read up on these things and learn them on your own. I know, that kind of sucks. Why am I watching these videos if you're not going to tell me? Well, read these up, and if you're like me, you'll realize, oh my goodness, so many people do these all the time. For instance, Rationalization and displacement, so common all over the place. Everyone does them. It's ridiculous. That means we're out of time. So look these up. I'll give you a preview of one. Denial. Let's suppose you're married and you have this unconscious desire to cheat on your spouse. The denial defense mechanism is you just deny that you even have that impulse. Oh, no, I'm totally loyal. I never even want to have sex with anyone else but my spouse, right? Projection's pretty good. Projection's when you start accusing your spouse of wanting to cheat. You totally want to cheat on me, I can tell. These are amazing things that we do. So read up on them, and I'm going to make an assignment about them. It's going to be pretty cool. And if you're just some crazy YouTuber that stumbled across this video, if you want to know more about these defense mechanisms, leave a comment below and maybe I'll answer it. But that's all the time we have. Tune in next time for the next episode, and we're going to talk all about the oh-so-sexy psychosexual stages of development. Yeah.